G'day guys, and welcome to another Phil and Jen in the Philippines. Phil here in Australia. Just some news. I'm going to do a split screen with Jen in the next couple of vlogs, and also a couple of interviews you may be interested in. But before we go on with this vlog, do the same as before. Subscribe, press the thumbs up button, comment, and share with your friends, or at least mention the vlog for people that may be interested so the channel can grow. Okay, I'm going to stir up probably another hornet's nest, but the reality of the situation is this. After, and as you know, reading every comment that comes to the station, I've become aware of the situation that there is a couple of expats living in the Philippines over there that really take umbrage at what I possibly bring up and defend the Philippines, quite rightly so, with all their might and vigour, and leave comments like this is bullshit and that is bullshit and yada yada yada, and you're all entitled to your own opinion. But simply because incidents haven't happened to you whilst you're living there doesn't mean they don't go on. And I certainly don't lay awake at night thinking of one horror story to tell you about the Philippines for the next vlog. These are simply observations, and they must be reasonable observations because the majority of the guys that are viewing, that are living in the Philippines, agree that these incidences from time to time do happen. So don't take it to heart. If these type of things haven't happened to you, well, that's fabulous for you. You know, like you're living a great life. I'm not here to rock the boat as far as your lives are concerned, but it appears to me that some of you guys out there think that if anything negatives said about the situation in the Philippines, you take it to heart like it's undermining your decision to live there. It's not meant to do those things. It's meant to say these things happen in at certain times in certain places in the Philippines, and be aware of them and try to avoid them. Now, if I did a nice, shiny, bright travel vlog of the Philippines, that's fine. But, you know, I think that's a useless situation when there's so many vloggers out there telling you how wonderful a place is. And it is wonderful in a lot of things. But there's a lot of things in the Philippines that need to be corrected. Now, the other thing about a lot of my Filipino viewers, and fortunately, the majority of them are realists and understand that it's not done with any form of malice, as far as the entire Philippines is concerned. Yes, I do get the shits from time to time with officials over there and the way they carry on, because that's not only negative towards me, it's negative towards the entire country for their own benefit. But it does go on. Anyway, my fellow viewers are probably some of my most ardent supporters, and I thank all you guys for that. And they realise that certain things must be done in the Philippines for them to elevate themselves around the world. And some of those things are a change of attitude. Unfortunately, as time goes on, we are not an island. No one in the world can sit independently and expect to get the benefits from the world and run their own race. There's got to be a bit of give and take. And for people over there to say, if you don't like it, don't come here, or you can't tell us what to do, you know, is a ludicrous situation. Because as long as the Philippines stands or sits as a country with their hands out to the West and are not independent in their own financial right, as long as they rely so heavily on other people donating money, whether it be through overseas aid or taxpayers in another country, they've got to toe the line to a degree. And that's just a fact of life. You can't take the moral high ground and say, we are going to do exactly as we please, and you people are going to pay for the luxury of us doing what we want. Now, as I said, there's going to have to be some adjustments for the Philippines to go forward and join the international community as an equal. They just can't stay independent and say, well, that's the Philippines and there's more fun in the Philippines, because the reality of the situation is that they are heavily reliant on the generosity of other countries. Having said that, as an example of what I'm saying, is I know through personal experience that overseas investment is sought, and a lot of overseas companies do invest in the Philippines. But a large percentage of those investments aren't ongoing. Factories and this type of thing. I know from personal accounts over the last 9 years, a number of corporate entities in the south, let's only talk about what I know, have come in varying degrees as far as fish processing, transportation, and we're talking large international companies, started factories, power generation, shipping, and this is all taking place in Mindanao. That's how I can speak about it. I'm not talking about the rest of the Philippines, I'm talking about an example that I know of. The companies were set up, the factories were produced, and they lasted 2 to 3 years, and the companies withdrew again. Because the attitude of the workers is, this is the Philippines and this is the way we do it. And it's just not acceptable, especially to Western countries such as Japan, the United States, Australia, England. We all have a standard we expect you to maintain for us as a country to continue investment. If you can't make any money there, you withdraw that investment. And this is why the Philippines is retarded. On an easier thing to understand, let's take ukay-ukay. Now, we all know it's second-hand clothing sent in from all over the world through charitable organisations. Now, these charitable organisations collect the clothes from people such as ourselves in the West who are under the impression they're doing something good by donating clothes that are still wearable, that are still, they're more than likely just gone out of fashion. And some factories here who have excess stock and can't clear that stock donate to these charities on the expectation that they are assisting a third world country. And the belief, rightly or wrongly, is that they'll be distributed by the charitable organisations amongst the poor. And so we go home with a warm and fuzzy feeling that we're doing something for the third world, and it's going to the Philippines and other countries. We'll only talk about the Philippines at this time. But the reality is, somehow that's circumvented. And ukay-ukay, and we know that ukay-ukay is a big thing all over the Philippines, it gets into the public domain through retail outlets. Now, they're only small home businesses, and the effect of those small home businesses, someone had to have profited by a donation, circumvented that donation to put into the public sector by way of ukay-ukay sales. Someone made a lot of money. And the proof is in the pudding. There's ukay-ukay everywhere, and it's I've gone to ukay-ukay, and there's Salvation Army tags from Australia and Sydney and Wollongong, places that I know they've been distributed from. Most of them, or a lot of them, had the price tags on it from the previous op shops. This country, who once produced, and probably still does, large-scale manufacturing in clothing for export, whilst ever the population can get cheap, good quality stuff through ukay-ukay, the industry over here will never survive. So for short-term gain, long-term is just ignored. And this is only an example of an industry, again, through short-term gain and profit that is going to the wrong people, is retarding industry in this country. To my knowledge, the Philippines is well known internationally as a call centre type outlet, where we have good English speakers, and call centres from the United States and Canada and my home country are set up in places like Manila and Cebu, and some in lesser areas, but they have a good reputation for call centres. Well, that's all wonderful, but it doesn't produce anything. And whilst ever call centres are obtaining that business through low wages, it will not go anywhere. The country's got to start producing stuff or having a service industry that will have a continuance over short-term profit. And that's the only way overseas companies will continue, or at least consider, investing in the Philippines. We're not interested in the fact, as an overseas country, whether culturally you take so many days off through public holidays, where you can't do this, and we've got to eat 3 meals a day, and you've got to supply that, and you've got to supply this. These are all things that we don't have to put up with as a first world country, that you, who need the jobs, who need the investment, continue to demand, or you basically sabotage the business by doing it and not bending. So anyway, that's a little bleat on businesses as far as the Philippines is concerned. A lot of you will disagree, but the fact of the matter is this: historically, when the Philippines, and we're not talking about the politics, although the politics had a lot to do with it, when the Philippines gained independence, total independence, this was considered to be, or the Philippines was considered to be, the fourth wealthiest Asian country in Asia, Southeast Asia. And now, in a very short period of time, they're considered third world. Now, the outside world didn't do that to them. The infrastructure to a certain degree was here. The Philippines did it to themselves. And you can be fiercely proud, as most Filipinos are, and stand up there to the national anthem and pledge allegiance and whatever. But the fact is, you cannot do it and then expect the rest of the world to support you. Now, someone like myself that comes from Australia and are voicing these opinions, and that's all they are, is opinions, and thought to be constructive criticism, because no one has been able to tell me that anything I've brought up doesn't happen in the Philippines. If what I say in these vlogs is a lie, it's made up, it doesn't happen, please point out which lie, which didn't happen, that doesn't happen in the Philippines, etc., etc. Because you will be bombarded by other subscribers, not myself. I won't even answer that, because what I'm saying to you is everything I tell you, I have experienced in the Philippines. I don't have to answer those questions, because other subscribers that have no benefit in this vlog whatsoever will get on and make sure that you know that these things do happen. Now, overseas investment is my opinion and my opinion only. I know that should I be in a position to invest, as I have done overseas, had I known the reality and the work ethic and of the Filipinos, I would never have invested that amount of money, or the amount of money I did, in business in the Philippines, had I known previous to doing it. Because the work ethic isn't there. The ability to realise that if we do A, B will come along, and C will eventually, have a business that runs for quite some time, if not basically forever. The rape and pillage of businesses, whether it be small business or it be large business, because the mentality is let's rape and pillage while they're here, does no one any real harm, especially when you're talking about large corporations. It does the harm to yourselves, the Filipinos over there. You should get into a business, nurture that business, because that business is feeding you. The country as a whole is too lax with poverty. They're too comfortable with poverty. The handout is just expected, and the dignity of having your hand out, or the lack of dignity, is not even thought about anymore. It's self-pity, and it's been created by yourselves. You can't blame it on the United States, because you've had 50 or so years plus to correct this. You can't blame it on the politicians, because you put them there. It's all got to get back to a change in attitude. You've got to stop thinking of yourselves as Visayan and Ilocano and Ilonggo and etc., etc., etc. You are Filipinos, and the jealousies, the petty jealousies that are holding you back, is what's destroying the country. And the more money that's poured in, eventually, and we're, as I said beforehand, we are about to enter into an economic situation where our citizens in the West are going to attack things like overseas aid because they're doing without things. So that's going to dry up. If you don't wake up, if you don't give value for money, people will abandon the Philippines. And you might think it's very clever. We won't worry about the Americans and the Australians, we'll go to the Chinese. The Chinese will take their pound of flesh, and before you know it, you won't have a country to worry about because it'll be owned by somebody else. That's my little 2 bobs worth. Phil and Jen in the Philippines, love the comments, subscribe, ring the bell, and look forward to the next vlog with you. Cheers.